what is it with editors about eating scenes?
That's why I'm nearly always overweight.
Yeah, so the film is very complexly structured with a lot of time shifts, and how much of that was in the original script? And I have another question which is completely unrelated. You went into this knowing that this was part one, though nobody knew they were going to make part two, except, I guess, your director. And
well, it's a very 2022 thing, isn't it? Like and share for part two.
yeah.
The little time loops. Okay, so working with Denis, this is our fourth collaboration. We did Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner, and Dune. And there's a kind of, he's so specific as a director, his planning process, he and his team, at the beginning stages, that's very much Patrice Vermette, who's his production designer, and his storyboard artist, Sam Hideki. They prepare, but they also throw things away at a minute's notice when a better idea comes along. So in a kind of funny way, that's really perfect for me. And weirdly, this is a scene that never changed. Every other thing in the film changed, but this never changed. So, which is a tremendous compliment as an editor when you find a director who isn't gonna, dick with things just for the sake of it. It's one compliment that even though you're in the trenches with the Gom Jabbar scene, it was 20 months of turmoil, but on, there are these rocks, these flags in the ground saying, no, that's exactly what I wanted. And in the case of this, it wasn't planned to use those little shots of the chandelier or the bullfighting, Atreides bullfighting references, which are useful later in the film. And nor was the little time loop, which is just something I put in. And I'm kind of attracted to time loops anyway. The beginning of Shame, one of my favorite projects with Steve McQueen, has got a massive time loop in the film at the beginning, where you can't tell whether something is a syndrome or a ritual, or if it's the same day or every day. It's a kind of key thing, it's an ingredient we get to play with as editors that nobody else gets to play with. I mean, I did once get a review for Hunger that said that the cameraman really knows how long to hold a shot, which I honestly was really fucked off about. And there was a later ingredient. I'm British, I can get away with it. And there was another loop later that we found, which was sort of really inspiring with the footage that Denis gives me, and then he celebrates what I do with it, and it was like just such a beautiful thing. So many things in that scene are planned, and most of all that it's a quiet scene, very near the beginning of the film, and that was something that this project was a kind of enormous sense of discovery. The structure changed a lot, and particularly the beginning of the film, because there's a much shorter version of this film, but it doesn't compel you as much. This gives you the chance to kind of deeply go into the family of the Atreides before you send them off to an oven and test them. And that scene was very important. And also there's a tiny little ingredient in there, which is, I always think this film also has a lot in common with the film Arrival in terms of cutting, in that, I've got a very simple trick that's sort of got me onto this seat here, which is that if you have a shot of somebody looking very intensely and then you cut to something, it looks like they're thinking about it.
I think your knowledge of film history might have helped you in that.
Kuleshov effect, I think we're talking about. The Kuleshov effect, I think we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, and that little hint of him thinking about Chani, his dream apparition at that stage, is a little ingredient that you then give a kind of, that's the beginning of its narrative trajectory until, a little bit like Arrival, where the kind of two time zones are intercut with each other, and they start off as random interventions on the modern day life, and then they end up equal strength. And that's a kind of, you know, back to being 8 or 9 years old, it's using every possible source of inspiration to be able to make that so. You know, in the case of Arrival, it was about having totally silent images at the beginning, and then gradually sounds intervene, small sounds which are surprising, and then eventually, you know, it's equal status. You're hearing two voices at the same time, a dream actually from the future, and present-day narrative. So I don't know. I always say that, you know, working with this kind of material and this kind of task, it's like being a pig amongst the acorns. I'm so happy doing what I do on a film like that.
It's not a pretty picture, but yes. So,
well, back to dinner scenes.
Yeah.
You should come round to the Walkers for dinner.
So you were on this for 20 months.
Yes.
That's a long time.
Well, there was a big hole in the middle of it, which was technically we stopped down during the pandemic, but actually me and Denny carried on working, and actually I you know, the pandemic has been awful for people, so I don't want to be glib about it, but it was very beneficial to us because it gave us that time to stop and think that you never get. It's normally, you know, director's cut, producer's cut, on, VFX, and then, you know, it's hasty. Whereas this gave us a little pause at exactly the right time. We just delivered our director's cut to be able to kind of have blue skies thinking about how we could do this better.
Yeah, it's a very intense thing. How much do you carry it home with you?
Well, I mean, we cut it at my home, and that's...
Got me again.
So I literally, there were times when, I mean, it really worked for me insofar as, you know, there's always that debate when you're at 9 o'clock and you're in the studio whether or not you're going to get pizza in, and that's just always feels like such a bad idea that you sort of like sometimes give up and go home and then sort of come in early or something, and then you spend the whole night worrying about something that isn't fixed. And for me, being able to kind of like just come down actually in the middle of the night in my pajamas and cut it for half an hour. Sorry guys, but a lot of this film was cut in pajamas. And it was just, that suited me very, very much. I'm not sure it suited my middle daughter who was trying to do a UCLA course with the sound of a worm constantly erupting in the room next door. But, you know, we made peace.
Can I just add one other thing, just with both Hank and Joe, you're just like the masters of intercutting. And for an editor, like, that's the closest thing to spirituality that I've ever experienced. Like, I think I told you, Joe, like at the end of Arrival, I sat in the theater alone, just ugly crying for like 20 minutes because just seeing the craftsmanship and the work and the juxtaposition, it was just so emotional for me. And to see like just a simpler version of that in the scene, and then just to see Hank's sort of on steroids version of that is just so inspiring. And that's, for me, it's what I'm reaching for. And, you know, we got to do a bit of intercutting as well. And I just love that so much, just to see that. And anyways, it's more of a,
Thank you. Thank you.